In a world where we change our cell phones every 2 years and home appliances seem to leave the factory with an expiration date, it's hard to imagine a machine that works non-stop for more than a century, but they exist. They are silent witnesses to an era when engineering was synonymous with durability and precision, and when repairing was much more important than replacing. We live in the age of planned obsolescence. It seems that, the moment we take a smartphone or a blender out of the box, an invisible clock begins the countdown until it breaks. We have been conditioned to believe that new is always better, and that when something breaks, the easiest solution is to throw it in the trash. But it wasn't always like that. There was a time when engineering was a promise of longevity, a time when objects were built with noble materials, with generous tolerances, and, above all, with the intention of being repaired, not replaced. These objects were not disposable, they were family heirlooms. And the proof is that many of them are still here, not in dusty museums, but in our homes, garages, and cities, functioning day after day, for more than a century. Today, we're going on a journey through time with 15 incredible machines. They are not distant industrial giants, but rather the ancestors of the objects you use every day. From lamps that refuse to go out to tools that built the modern world, these are the machines that defy time. 15. The Centennial Light Bulb, Livermore, California. 1901. We begin our list with the most ubiquitous and disposable electrical object in our lives, the incandescent light bulb. We've all experienced the frustration of having a light bulb burn out months after buying it. But, hanging from the ceiling of a fire station in Livermore, California, there is an exception that defies logic. Known as the Centennial Light Bulb, it was first lit in 1901 and, save for brief power outages and a few changes of location, has been shining continuously ever since. What's the secret? Why does it survive while billions of others have died? The answer lies in its purposeful inefficiency. It was manufactured by the Shelby Electric Company, and its design is fundamentally different from modern light bulbs. First, the filament is not thin tungsten, but carbon, and is about 8 times thicker than normal. Second, it operates at very low power. Although it's a 60-watt bulb, it runs at about 4 watts, emitting a faint orange glow. Similar to a nightlight working with so little stress and heat, the carbon filament degrades at a glacially slow rate. It's a physics lesson. If you don't force the machine, it doesn't break. The final irony is that it has already survived 3 different modern webcams installed to monitor it 24 hours a day. The high-tech cameras failed. The 1901 bulb remains. 13 manual coffee grinders, Spawn or Peugeot type, Mioiot Centesiotenta SE 1920s. Moving on to the kitchen and the sacred ritual of breakfast. In today's world of gourmet coffee, there is a relentless pursuit of the perfect cup. And, surprisingly, many experts are trading high-tech electric grinders for 19th century cast iron pieces, such as the Spawn or Peugeot models. Longevity here is guaranteed by the brutal simplicity of cast iron and wood, but the reason they are still used is the quality of the result. Most cheap electric grinders today use small blades that spin at high speed. They don't grind the coffee, they chop it violently, creating uneven powder and, worse, generating heat that begins to cook the coffee oils prematurely, spoiling the flavor. The century-old manual grinders use a system of conical metal burrs. When you turn the crank, you are crushing the grains evenly and coolly. It's a slower, more tactile process that preserves the integrity of the grain. It's Victorian technology surpassing modern convenience through the simple criterion of quality. 14 Singer sewing machines, cast iron models, Mui Oitocentesi Noventa SE 1910s. If you open your grandmother's closet, there's a good chance you'll find our Nova 14, the classic black cast iron Singer sewing machine. And there's an even greater chance that, with a little oil, it will sew jeans as well as the day it was made, 120 years ago. These machines are not just survivors, they are revolutionary. Singer was one of the first companies to perfect manufacturing with interchangeable parts on a mass scale for the home market. This meant that the engineering was so precise that a screw, a needle, or a bobbin made in 1900 would fit perfectly into an identical machine made in 1930. Before that, each machine was almost a unique prototype. Singer democratized sewing and created a repair ecosystem. Unlike modern machines with nylon gears that dry out and break, old Singers are metal on metal. If something jams, you don't throw it away. You open it, clean it, lubricate it, and it's ready for another decade of work. 12. The Beverly Clock, New Zealand -1864. Number 12. We have something bordering on the supernatural. A sideboard clock that, since it was built in 1864 by clockmaker Arthur Beverley in New Zealand, has theoretically never needed human intervention to continue working. It is often called the clock that never needs winding, but how? It doesn't violate the laws of physics. It simply uses an energy source that we ignore: the weather. Inside the mechanism, there is a hermetically sealed metal case containing air. When the room temperature rises during the day, the air inside expands and pushes a diaphragm. When the temperature drops at night, the air contracts and the diaphragm returns. This small daily breath is enough to lift a small lead weight. It is the descent of this weight that moves the clock's gears. The mechanism is so incredibly efficient that a temperature variation of just 3 degrees Celsius, 6 degrees Fahrenheit over the course of a day is enough to store energy for 24 hours of operation. As long as the sun rises and sets, the Beverly clock will continue ticking. 11 cast iron radiators, Victorian, 1800, Innoventa SC 1920s. Those who live in cold regions know the comfort our Nova 11. In many old houses in Europe and North America, the most modern heating systems have not yet managed to dethrone the cast iron radiators of the Victorian era. Often, they are kept for their aesthetic beauty, true industrial sculptures, but the technical reason for their survival is thermal mass. A modern aluminum or steel radiator heats up quickly, but cools down the second the boiler shuts off. These Victorian giants contain hundreds of pounds of iron and dozens of liters of water. It takes time to heat them up, but once hot, they become gigantic heat batteries. They continue to radiate a gentle, consistent warmth for hours after the central system has shut down, keeping the house comfortable in a way that forced air systems simply cannot replicate. They are the definition of inertia applied to comfort. 10. The Safety Bicycle 1890s Design. We've reached the middle of our list with the revolution in personal transportation, the bicycle, before 1880. Bicycles were dangerous contraptions, like the penny farthing, with its gigantic front wheel. If you fell from a height, usually headfirst, but in the late 1880s, the safety bicycle, or the rover, emerged. If you look at a model from 1895, you'll see something surprising. It's exactly the same machine you use today. 2 wheels of the same size, air-filled tires, a diamond-shaped frame, and crucially a chain moving the rear wheel, allowing the cyclist to stay close to the ground. This design was such an absolute engineering hit in terms of ergonomics, mechanical efficiency, and safety that, in over 130 years, no one has managed to fundamentally improve it. A bicycle built in the year 1900, with basic maintenance of chain and tires, is a perfectly functional vehicle on the streets today. 9 Kodak Brownie Camera No. 2-1901 Number 9 represents the direct ancestor of your smartphone camera. Before 1900, photography was for professionals with expensive equipment and dangerous chemicals. George Eastman of Kodak changed all that with one phrase: "You press the button, we do the rest." The Kodak Brownie No. 2, released in 1901, cost only $1. It was basically a reinforced cardboard box, wood, and a little metal, with a simple lens on the front. It was the first camera for the masses. But the real miracle here isn't the box, but the system it created. It was designed to use a new film format called one. Incredibly, this 1901 film format became such a robust professional standard that companies like Kodak and Fujifilm still manufacture it today. You can buy a new roll of film on Amazon, put it in a 120-year-old cardboard camera, and go out taking pictures. It's a triumph of standardization. 8. The Siphonic Flushing Toilet. Late 19th century, it may not be the most glamorous item on the list, but No. 8 is essential to modern civilization. The humble flushing toilet. If you enter a bathroom in a historic building, you might find a toilet that has been in operation for over a century. The ceramic itself, of course, lasts for millennia, but the Victorian flushing mechanism is a lesson in hydraulic physics. Back then, there was a real fear of sewer gases entering homes, so systems were oversized to ensure a perfect water seal. Many used the vacuum siphon principle with water tanks installed high in the wall. When you pulled the chain, the gravity of the water falling from 2 meters high created a powerful suction, cleaning the toilet with an efficiency that many modern LaFlow models can't match. Its internal mechanisms were made of heavy brass and copper, not plastic that breaks down in 5 years. 7 Gramophone Victrola Wind-Up, 19 turns, returning to the living room at number 7. We have the original entertainment center, the Wind-Up Victrola. In an era of digital streaming and Bluetooth, using one of these seems like magic. It's fascinating to remember that this is a 100% mechanical sound device. There's no electrical wire, no outlet, no digital amplifier. You wind up a giant spring that makes the platter spin. The sound is pure physics. A thick steel needle scratches the grooves of the wrecker, physically vibrating. This vibration is transferred to a mica diaphragm, a kind of mineral eardrum, and this tiny sound is then acoustically amplified by a large horn hidden inside the beautiful wooden cabinet. It's sound reproduction in its rawest and most visceral form, and it works as well today as it did in 1915. 6 Universal Meat Grinder Cast Iron, 1900s in the kitchen. The No. 6 is the definition of indestructible, the manual cast iron meat grinder, often branded Universal. This is the perfect example of fail-safe design. If you look at a modern food processor, you'll see circuit boards and plastic gears that wear out if you push them too hard. The antique grinder is pure mechanical advantage. It's based on Archimedes' screw. You turn the crank, and a giant endless metal screw pushes the meat with irresistible force against a rotating steel blade and a perforated disc. There's nothing to break. The only maintenance required in 120 years is sharpening the blade and drying it well so it doesn't rust. If you drop it on the floor, worry about your kitchen floor, not the grinder. 5 Stanley Hand Planes, Bailey Models. obsolescence SC 1920s. If your grandfather or great-grandfather was a carpenter, he knew our Nover 5 Stanley hand planes. Especially the Bailey models from the Golden Age before World War II are legendary tools. Today, professional carpenters pay dearly for these vintage models, preferring them to new ones. Why? The answer lies in metallurgy. The cast iron used back then was aged. After being cast, the plane bodies were left outdoors, exposed to rain and sun for months, sometimes a year, before being macheted. This natural process released the internal stresses of the metal. The result is a tool that is chemically more stable and maintains its perfectly flat base for centuries, something that today's accelerated manufacturing rarely manages to replicate. For vintage electric fans, for example, Westinghouse 1910's No. 4 features the relief of summer before the invention of air conditioning. The electric fans of the early 20th century, from brands like Westinghouse or General Electric, they are beautiful, heavy, and seem to have been built to last 1,000 years, and they were. The motors of these fans were absurdly oversized for the work they performed, using thick copper wiring and porous bronze bearings that only need a drop of oil every few years. But they are survivors of an era less concerned with safety. The protective grills were purely decorative. If you have one of these at home, you know it works perfectly. But you also know it can chop off a finger with its solid brass blades if you're not careful. They are efficient machines, but they demand respect. 3 Underwood No. 5 Typewriter -1900, taking the podium. We have the object that standardized office work worldwide. The Underwood No. 5 typewriter, launched at the turn of the century. Before it, the world of typewriters was a chaos of strange designs. Some typed upside down, and you couldn't see what you were typing. The Underwood No. 5 changed everything by combining the best ideas into one robust package. It solidified the QWERTY keyboard layout, introduced visible writing where you see the letter as soon as it hits the paper, and used the leva mechanism that became standard. It was built like a tank, weighing almost 15 kilograms of steel and iron. If you know how to use a computer keyboard today, you owe it to this machine. You can sit down at a 1905 Underwood today and start writing a novel without needing an instruction manual. 2 Steinway & Sons Grand Concert Pianos. 1810 SC 1920s No. 2 represents the pinnacle of engineering applied to art and home furnishings, a Steinway grand piano from its golden age. Such a piano is a complex machine with approximately 12,000 individual parts, wood, felt, leather, and metal, all needing to work in harmony. But the fact that an instrument from 1890 can still be played in concert today is a miracle of tension engineering. Inside it, more than 200 steel strings are stretched with a combined force of about 20 tons. That's enough force to lift a truck. That tension has been there, constant for over 100 years. The only thing that keeps the piano from imploding is a massive internal cast iron structure, the very skeleton of the beast, which withstands this load century after century, allowing the wood to resonate and create music. 1. The Duria Motor Wagon -1893, and finally, at number 1, the great-great-grandfather of the car in your garage, the 1893 Duria Motor Wagon. This wasn't the world's first car, but it was the first gasoline-powered car built and sold commercially in the United States. Created by the Duria brothers in a garage in Springfield, Massachusetts. And incredibly, the original model still runs. It looks like a carriage because that's exactly what they used as a base. But what makes it fascinating is the engine. It's internal combustion in its most primitive form. It doesn't use modern spark plugs. Instead, it uses a system called make and break ignition. Inside the cylinder, 2 pieces of metal physically strike each other and separate at the right moment, creating a raw electrical spark to ignite the gasoline. It's noisy, smells of oil and gasoline, shakes all over, but it works. It's living proof that the basic idea of the internal combustion engine, born more than 130 years ago, was so robust that it still moves the world today. Looking at these 15 machines, it's easy to feel a pang of nostalgia, but they are more than just charming old things. They are a physical manifesto of a different philosophy. They were built in a time when materials were expensive and labor was valued, so it made sense to build things to last. Today, materials are cheap and manufacturing is automated, making it more profitable to sell a new one than to repair the old one. These century-old machines prove that durability is not a lost technological mystery, it's a design choice. They remind us that, with honest engineering, quality materials, and a little care, the things we create can indeed overcome time. And you? Do you have any object in your house that has been passed down through generations and still works? A tool? A clock? Something that refuses to break? Share its story in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey through the engineering of the past, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.